The shocking truth about the Proverbs 31 woman, what you never knew about her life at home, in the heart of every whispered conversation, there lies a scandalous secret. The Proverbs 31 woman, revered in Scripture, was more than just a model of virtue. She was shrouded in mystery, fighting battles behind closed doors that would leave any onlooker breathless. Imagine a household where every corner echoed with both admiration and suspicion. Her husband, a nobleman, praised her in public, but what did he really know of her tormented nights and the shadows that danced in those silent hours? What darkness lurked beneath the golden embroidery of her garments? On the surface, she seemed perfect, a diligent caretaker, an emblem of piety. But deep within her tumultuous spirit stirred a complexity that defied the idyllic image painted in Proverbs. Had her smiles turned hollow, concealing a heart burdened by the weight of expectations? Murmurs in the marketplace hinted at an unspeakable truth. Had she forged alliances with forces so shocking, they could bring her world crumbling down? Think about the roiling tension as neighbors exchanged knowing glances, each pondering the hidden truths of the perfect woman next door. It was as if a great storm brewed beneath the surface, forever threatening to break, and yet she stood poised, her façade unshaken. Her nights were restless, spent wondering if she had become the very thing society demanded, a flawless emissary, trading freedom for acceptance, and sanity for serenity. In those moments, did she ever think of escaping? Of breaking free from the clutches of admiration that felt more like a noose? It's easy to picture her standing by a window, eyes reflecting the night sky, where dark thoughts tangled with stars, whispering of freedom and choice. Would she confide in a friend, or was that too risky? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. What if the stories of her days were not filled with simple tasks, but riddled with secrets that could unravel her very sense of self? What lay hidden beneath the sheen of her reputation? As she folded another piece of fine linen, did she feel the fabric burn with the gloss of falsehood, wrapping around her like a shroud? The more questions that swirled, the more the weight of her existence pressed down. What would it take to break the silence? Would the truth finally come to light when she least expected it? In the gloom of her extravagant home, a new sound broke the silence, a faint rustling, followed by the creak of the wooden floorboards that had endured years of graceful living. She stood frozen by the hearth, her heart thundering against her ribcage. That noise wasn't just her own anxieties manifesting, it was something else, someone else. "Who's there?" She called out, her voice a fragile whisper that belied the enormity of her fear. For a moment, there was stillness, the air thick with anticipation so tangible it felt like a weight pressing down on her chest. Then, stepping from the shadows, a face she never expected to see. It was Abigail, her old friend, the only one who knew the darkness creeping into her life. Her heart raced at the sight, a mix of relief and dread cascading through her. "Abigail. What are you doing here?" She gripped the mantle, knuckles white, both thrilled and fearful. "I had to come." Abigail's eyes darted around, nervously scanning every corner as if the walls themselves had ears. "I heard things, whispers that spread like wildfire. Are you all right? Do I look all right?" She snapped, anger flaring like a flame that caught her off guard. "I'm the Proverbs 31 woman, destined for perfection. But inside, I'm withering away." A chill swept across the room. The fire crackled, casting flickering shadows that danced menacingly against the walls. Abigail stepped closer, lowering her voice. "They say you've been seen with the merchant down by the market. What's true? What's a lie?" The tension hung between them like a shroud, thick and suffocating. Each accusation was a dagger aimed directly at her carefully constructed façade. The merchant. Always the merchant. Just the hint that she could be involved with him sent ripples through the community. Could this be the link to her unraveling reputation? I had a conversation with him, she confessed, words scraping against her throat. Business. That's all. But the moment we spoke, it felt like something deeper, something I can't shake. Maybe he's the first man who sees more than just what I'm supposed to be. Abigail's face morphed from concern to horror. But you can't trust him. You know what they say about his past, those rumors, they can destroy everything. Everything is already crumbling. She shouted, eyes flashing with desperation. Do you think I chose to be perfect? What if I just want to feel something, to escape this gilded cage of expectations? Slumped against the wall, Abigail peered into her friend's eyes, seeing the fire of rebellion just beneath the surface. Is that really what you want? Or is it just a fleeting thought driven by frustration? A moment of weakness? The storm brewing within her was ready to erupt. It's not weakness, she hissed, breath coming in sharp bursts. It's the hunger for something real, something that breaks this illusion. Outside, the wind howled, rattling the shutters. Abigail met her gaze with a loaded silence, the tension palpable, anchoring them in a moment both daunting and electrifying. What would happen if she threw caution to the wind? What if she plunged headlong into chaos, into a world free from societal judgment? Was she prepared for such a leap? But just then, a loud knock echoed at the door. Both women froze. Who could that be at such an hour? Would they bring news that could change everything, or something more sinister? Stay quiet, she mouthed to Abigail, who nodded, wide eyes filled with alarm. As she crept closer to the door, dread coiling within her. Was this the moment everything would unravel? Or would it lead to a consequence she couldn't undo? She hesitated, fingers trembling, heart racing wildly. What if the truth waiting outside was even more shocking than the lies that had already begun to pull at her life? With her heart pounding against her ribs, she raised a hesitant hand to the door, the wood cool and solid against her palm. The knocking grew more insistent, each thud echoing the tumult within her: fear, frustration, and an undeniable craving for release. She turned to Abigail, who stood there, her face a mask of concern. "Open it," Abigail whispered, though her wide eyes said the opposite. "You can't leave it like this." Breath hitching, she placed her trembling fingers on the door handle. What if the merchant had sent someone? What if it was someone worse? But as her mind raced with horrid possibilities, the voice of reason urged her forward. What if it was a chance at clarity? What if she could uncover a deeper truth, one that shattered the gilded cage clinging to her life? "Here goes nothing," she murmured and pulled the door open. The cold night air rushed in, swirling around her like an icy embrace. Standing on the doorstep was not the merchant, but a figure cloaked in darkness, a scarf wrapped around their face. The only hint of familiarity was the intense gleam of their eyes. "Who are you?" she demanded, her voice steadier than she felt. "Just someone who knows the truth about you," the stranger replied, voice low and gravelly. A chill crept down her spine. The truth? Her mind raced back to the rumors about the merchant, the whispers she had tried to sidestep. "What do you mean? Your perfect life?" "It's all a lie," they replied, stepping closer until they were in the light of the flickering flames in her hearth. "You are not who everyone thinks you are." Panic surged through her, bubbling to the surface where the anger had taken root. "What do you know?" she spat. "You don't know me." "Oh, but I do," the stranger said, lowering their voice to a near whisper. "I know your scars, the choices you wish to forget, and the demons that haunt you. I know what will happen if you continue down this path." Abigail moved slightly behind her, peering around her friend's shoulder, confusion weaving between them. "What are you talking about?" she asked, her voice trembling. "Who sent you? Does it matter? The truth is a double-edged sword." Holding on to your lies will get you killed or worse. They stepped back, adjusting the scarf to partially reveal a familiar face that ignited a flash of recognition in her mind, a figure from her past, someone she thought was long gone. Is it really you? She breathed, the world spinning around her. But how? Why now? Because you're out of options. It's time to decide how you wish to write your ending before someone else does it for you. Her heart sank, the weight of their words settling heavily like the flames in her hearth. She felt a mix of anger and fear. What are you saying? She choked out. Out there, it's chaos. But here, you have a chance. You can embrace it or deny it. The choice is yours. The stranger glanced over her shoulder at Abigail, whose eyes grew wide with horror as she pieced together the possibilities. What did it mean? Choices? Lies? And a reality where maybe the merchant was not the worst of her problems? The air crackled with tension, as her pulse quickened at the enormity of the moment. She glanced at Abigail, then back at the figure. And if the stranger suddenly shifted? There isn't time for questions. You must choose now, before something worse comes knocking. As they stared into her eyes, she felt the gaping maw of repercussions stretching before her. Was she truly ready for this reckoning? Nervously, she opened her mouth to respond, her mind racing. But just then, another loud crash echoed from the direction of the market, a flash of light illuminating something ominous outside. What's happening? Abigail squeaked, looking towards the growing shadows. This was just the beginning. The moment had arrived, and now the stakes were higher than she'd ever imagined. Will you follow me? The stranger asked, almost pleading, just as another horrific noise reverberated. Against the backdrops of a collapsing world, she realized she had only a heartbeat to decide her fate, and the clock was ticking. Would she embrace the unknown or retreat into the safety of her carefully crafted façade? She hesitated, torn between the darkness creeping closer from the market and the strange glimmer of hope in the stranger's eyes. All around them, the cacophony of chaos escalated, the shouts of panic, the thud of galloping hooves approaching, and the crash of glass shattering echoed ominously. Please, the stranger implored again. This is your moment. You must decide. What could she do? Every fiber of her being screamed at her to run, to flee from whatever nightmare awaited outside, yet the other side of her whispered of potential and freedom, a life beyond the façades. Abigail peered past her, bewildered. Please, just tell us what is happening. We can't, time is running out. The stranger interjected, their voice rising above the growing chaos, almost drowning out the sounds of chaos behind them. The merchant's men are coming. If you stay here, you'll be caught in the crossfire. They won't care for your innocence. Innocence? The word hung in the air, the bitter taste of it. She felt the weight of every lie she had spun, every pretense she had clung to. Was her innocence a mask she had worn too long? Another loud crash resounded outside, a guttering flame threatening to extinguish, mirroring her dwindling courage. The choice was no longer about her, it was about Abigail, too. I can't leave her, she murmured under her breath, though the urgency of the moment pressed down on her, making her feel small and powerless. Then bring her, the stranger said with a nod, their gaze steady. But you must trust me. If not, you'll end up imprisoned by your own fears. The air grew heavier, thick with impending danger. She looked at Abigail, who had turned pale as the noise outside intensified. What do we do? Abigail whispered, wide-eyed and trembling. Follow me, she replied, her voice firming in the face of uncertainty. She took a step forward, grasping Abigail's hand tightly, grounding herself. Let us go, she declared, swinging the door wide open. The outside world was gripped in chaos. Torches and lanterns flickered ominously in the hands of mindless throngs, cloaked figures darting like shadows through the mayhem. Her heart raced, each beat echoing like war drums as her pulse quickened. She didn't have time to look back. The stranger moved swiftly ahead, leading them into the maelstrom. They navigated alleyways and side streets, the walls seeming to whisper secrets as they passed that she couldn't decipher, each moment shifting her reality further. The chaos surged around them, voices rising and falling as curses and cries of fright filled the air. She glanced back at Abigail, now pale and breathless, struggling to keep pace. "Are you okay?" She suddenly stopped, concern wrapping around her heart like a vice. "I don't know." Abigail's eyes glistened with unshed tears as they stumbled forward, but they didn't have time to pause. The stranger turned sharply, gesturing them to follow closely. "Trust me. There's a clear exit if we keep moving. Just don't look back." Their voice, firm and relentless, propelled her onward. The pounding of her heart drowned out everything, the screams, the shouts, the world tumbling apart behind her. If she didn't escape now, would she ever have the chance again? She took a deep breath, pushing herself to answer the dark unknown that awaited. Friends? Enemies? Truth? As they rounded a corner, the chaos thrumming behind them grew louder, a monstrous wave ready to crash down. "We're almost there," the stranger urged, swift and sure. Just then, a deafening roar split the night, and a blinding light burst from the center of the market, illuminating the figures at the edges of the darkness. What was happening? The danger felt palpable, like a beast awakening from a long slumber. But when she turned to question the stranger, they were gone, leaving only the uncertainty swirling like smoke in a storm. Where did they go? Abigail whimpered, her grip tightening on her friend's arm. They were left facing the chaos, alone in the heart of rising tension. And before she could answer, a figure stepped from the shadows, a menacing silhouette. Closing in. "Time to choose sides," it growled, putting the weight of the world squarely on her shoulders. An impossible choice lay before her, and in that moment, the stakes soared infinitely higher than she had imagined. Would she step into the light, or into the darkness? As the figure moved closer, she braced herself for the truth. The figure loomed larger, shadows dancing across its face, obscuring any hint of identity. Her stomach twisted in knots as she glanced back at Abigail, panic evident in her wide eyes. This was not just a decision about fleeing, it was about what they might have to confront together. "Who are you?" she challenged, trying to sound braver than she felt. The figure smirked, revealing sharp teeth glinting in the dim light. "Just a messenger of the truth," it hissed, each word dripping with contempt. "You think you can run from your reality? You'll find it catches up to you. Always does." Sweat trickled down her back as her heart hammered louder. "What do you know about our reality?" "Everything," the figure said, arms outstretched like a puppeteer wielding control. "That's the problem with the brave and reckless. Truth has a way of breaking knees." Abigail trembled next to her, still gripping her arm, the touch grounding but also suffocating as the fear simmered. "Enough of this," she muttered, forcing her feet to move. "We need to go." But the figure laughed, a low, rumbling sound that sent chills racing down her spine. "Running? You think that'll save you? They'll find you, draw you back into the fold. There is no escape from the choices you've made." The words were like chains trying to bind her, but she shoved them away. "I'm not afraid of you." "Then you're more foolish than I thought." It spat, before suddenly charging at them, a dark rush that disrupted the shadows all around. She barely had time to react before adrenaline kicked in, sending her flying backward with Abigail right behind her. They darted to the side, narrowly avoiding the grasp of the looming figure. "Run! Go!" she screamed, dragging Abigail along. They fled deeper into the chaos that pulsed on the streets like a heart about to burst. Nothing made sense. The people, faces twisted in terror or fury, rushed in every direction. Some were bold, holding weapons, others were desperate, losing themselves in the throng. She could feel each panic-stricken heartbeat in the mask of the crowd, a collective terror that threatened to swallow them whole. "Where do we go?" Abigail panted, her breath hitching as they wound their way through the narrow passageways. "Anywhere but here," she replied, heart racing, scanning the route ahead. With every twist and turn, the danger escalated. We can't let that thing catch us. Suddenly, a flash of light cut through the chaos like a knife. It was blinding and beckoning, illuminating a dusty alley where collapsed market stalls lay half-burned in the mayhem. Something about that flicker pulled her, magnetizing their flight, yet she hesitated. "I think it could be safe," Abigail exclaimed, hope rising in her voice. "No. It might be a trap." The figure had re-emerged at the alley's entrance, the menacing grin just visible now, exuding power and dark promise. "The choice is yours, run or stay. Revel in your naivety. I guarantee you won't find what you seek." Abigail's eyes darted back and forth between her friend and the entrance of the alley. "What if we just enough?" she interrupted, her voice slicing through the panic. "We need to move. I want to let you get caught. Then let us take that chance." Abigail pressed on. Her stubbornness ignited a spark of courage within, breaching the walls she had built around herself. They bolted toward the alley, dodging the encroaching hands of chaos and fear. Just as they stepped into the darkness, she felt a rush of energy pulsate through her. They were free, if only for a moment. But then, the ground shook beneath them, the light that had seemed so inviting now twisted into something sinister. "What have we done?" she gasped as the darkness coiled tighter, ready to reclaim them. As they rushed further into the depths of the alley, another booming crash echoed, and a dreadful voice called after them, "You can't escape your destiny." The confounding reality shifted once more, leaving her breathless. What did the figure know that they did not? What ultimate truth awaited them in that forsaken corridor of shadows? The never-ending chase built a vault of tension between them and the uncertainty that loomed like a storm overhead. Would they unveil the treasure of truth or fall victim to the darkness that seemed to breathe along with them? They pressed on, pulse racing, not knowing what lay around the next corner or who would be waiting. The darkness wrapped around them like a living thing, consuming their breaths in shallow gasps. She could hear the echoes of their footsteps, each one felt like a countdown. The alley narrowed, the walls closing in, shadows slithering like serpents ready to strike. "What if we're running straight into a trap?" Abigail whispered, her voice quivering. "Then we'll deal with it," she shot back, a flurry of determination lacing her words. But doubt crept into her mind, gnawing at her resolve. "Just keep moving." A flicker of light danced in the distance, calling to them like a beacon in the night. But it felt wrong, a mirage of safety in a realm overflowing with danger. The deeper they ventured, a strange chill settled over her, like icy fingers running down her spine. "What do you think is at the end?" Abigail's voice trembled. "I don't know, but we have to find out," she replied, though uncertainty tugged at her heart. They had taken a leap of faith into the unknown, driven by fear rather than hope. A sudden crash resonated in the silence, vibrating through the ground beneath them. It was enough to make them stumble, their hearts leaping into their throats. Was the figure coming for them? Would it devour them whole? "Run!" she urged, her voice raw as they pushed forward. And then, they skidded to a halt. The alley opened up into a vast courtyard, littered with shattered glass and remnants of a life once lived. A fountain stood in the center, cracked and dry, the ghost of water long gone. The air was thick, a haunting chill engulfed everything. A silhouette emerged from the far side of the courtyard, cloaked in shadows. Panic bubbled inside her again, but this time, something about the figure felt different, familiar in a way she couldn't quite place. "Who are you?" she demanded, trying to maintain control. The figure stepped closer, and her breath caught in her throat. It was hard to make out details through the haze, but the shape stirred something deep within her. "Your past is more present than you think," it said, voice smooth and resonant. "What do you mean?" Abigail pressed, taking a cautious step back. Every choice, every moment, the voice dripped with sorrow. "You can't run from what was, what you've left behind." "What is this, some kind of mind game? She shouted, anger mixing with confusion. We're not afraid. But doubt sank its claws deeper, and she could feel the weight of their decisions crashing down on her. All those years of pretending the past didn't shape them, all those choices that felt trivial but had forged this nightmare. Face the truth, the figure beckoned, arms wide as if offering them something sacred. It's the only way to free yourself. Abigail turned, panic flaring in her eyes as she clung to her friend. What if it's right? What if we're running from something we need to confront? The words hit her like a slap. Could it be that they had been ignoring the very truths that could liberate them? But before she could respond, a blast of noise erupted from the other end of the courtyard. Heavy footsteps pounded the pavement. The figure of darkness loomed behind them, growing larger with each sound. The malicious grin returned, painting the figure in vivid terror. Your destiny waits for you. It howled, echoing eerily in the silence. You can't escape it. Her heart raced, the pounding almost drowning out the sound of the stomping feet heading their way. The dread filled the air, wrapping around them like a suffocating shroud. Do we stay and fight, or do we run? She shouted over the chaos, adrenaline surging through her veins. Abigail glanced at the looming figure and then back at the uncertain past, terror flickering in her eyes. I don't know. What do we do? As the darkness advanced, they remained trapped in a moment filled with choices, holding on to the thin thread of hope. What awaited them on the other side of the truth? What darkness would they have to confront? With no way to run, and no clear path forward, they had to face not just the figures chasing them but also the fears they had buried deep within. The ground trembled once more, a warning rumble of fate closing in. Now or never. She yelled, pushing Abigail towards the figure in the distance, ready to face whatever lay ahead. But would the truth be their salvation or their undoing? The figure loomed closer, its features sharpening in the murky light. A sense of recognition swept over her, grasping her heart in a vice. Wait! She called out, despite the terror clawing at her throat. Was this a ghost from her past, or a specter of her greatest fears? Your past cannot remain buried, the figure replied, the weight of its words sinking deep. She found herself frozen, straddling the line between fighting and fleeing. Time seemed to slow, each second stretching indefinitely, stretching before them like the vastness of the night sky. Who are you? Abigail whispered again, clutching her friend's arm tightly, grounding them both amidst the encroaching shadows. I am the truth you refuse to acknowledge, it said, a hint of remorse twinkling in the shadowed depths of its eyes. I am the mirror reflecting your choices, the whispers of what could have been. Her mind raced, flooding with memories, faces, laughter, moments both cherished and lost. Each one felt like a splinter, digging deeper into her skin. I turned my back on all that. I moved on. The words slipped out before she could stop them. Did you? The figure took another step forward, and the air crackled with dread. Or did you simply hide? Your heart aches because you've locked away the very pieces that could complete you. It's a trick. It's all a trick. Abigail shouted, desperation lacing her voice. The booming footsteps were getting closer. They could feel the ground vibrate beneath their feet like a live wire. Everything you deny is waiting for you, the figure began, but a loud crash interrupted, sending shards scattering across the courtyard. The footsteps grew thunderous, a symphony of chaos converging. Run! She screamed, yanking Abigail's hand as they bolted away from the figure, which lingered in the dying light, watching with an intensity that ignited their panic. The truth they'd hidden felt like a brand upon their souls, but now wasn't the time for reckoning. They dashed toward the archway at the far end of the courtyard, breaths ragged, muscles aching with fear-fueled energy. Yet even as they fled, a piece of her hung back. What had they left unaddressed? What lived in the shadows of their pasts, waiting to be acknowledged? Suddenly, Abigail stumbled. No! Get up! She urged, turning to pull her friend up. The sound of heavy feet was deafening now, sheer terror driving her forward. But as she looked back toward the approaching darkness, she felt a mixed rush of dread and revelation. "Abigail!" she shouted, panic rising like bile. "We can't stop. We have to keep going." Barely managing to stay on her feet, Abigail's eyes darted around the courtyard frantically, seeking an escape. "But we can't ignore it, can we? What if the way out is facing what's behind us?" Brushing her off, she nibbled at the edges of her resolve. The figure's message danced in her mind. Could it truly be their only option? To face the very shadows lurking in their past? They rounded the archway and skidded to a halt. The world beyond was a haze of darkness beyond the mere hint of moonlight. The pounding footfalls receded, but the chill in the air remained, settling deep as if warning her of the storm to come. "We could confront it," Abigail gasped, face pale, conflicted. "But what if it tears us apart?" As silence enveloped them, insecurity loomed just as large as the darkness that hunted them. The choices stretched before them, paths both terrifying and potentially liberating. "What if we choose wrong?" she breathed, holding Abigail's gaze tightly, feeling their hearts sink to the rhythm of danger. The echoes of their past were singing loudly now, each heartbeat a reminder that some truths were buried far too deep. "Together?" Abigail's voice wavered, uncertainty dancing in her eyes. "Together," she affirmed, her heart pounding in time with the shadow behind them. And as the darkness circled closer, they prepared to step back into what they feared most, uncertain if embracing their truth would cleanse them or consume them utterly. Could facing their past be the key to their survival or the end of everything they fought for? The air was thick with uncertainty as they stood at the edge of the darkness, doubt creeping into their minds. Abigail's brow furrowed, her breath coming out in trembling hitches. "Are you sure we can do this?" she whispered, gripping her friend's arm tighter. The faint glow of the moon cast long shadows, but all they could see were hazy outlines of what could be lurking just beyond their vision. "We have to, we can't keep running," she replied, the weight of her own words heavy. Every moment spent avoiding the truth felt like shackles tightening around their hearts. "Then let us do it," Abigail breathed, though fear quivered in her voice. They stepped forward into the abyss, an act of defiance against the specter that promised to haunt them until they acknowledged what lay hidden. As they crossed the threshold, the darkness wrapped around them like a living entity. It was suffocating yet oddly familiar, each breath heavier than the last. Memories flashed before her eyes like warped images in a shattered mirror, laughter from a childhood playground, shouts during a fierce fight with a best friend, the day she walked away from it all. Emotions surged like a tide threatening to drown her, but she pushed them aside. An eerie silence enveloped them, and the air felt electric with anticipation. "What comes next?" Abigail asked, her voice barely a whisper, as if afraid to disturb the shadows. Then, a soft sound broke the stillness like a whisper caught in the agitated wind. "You've returned to face what you've denied." It was the figure, emerging from the slivers of darkness like a shadow come to life. The voice echoed as if coming from everywhere and nowhere at once, wrapping around them. "What do you want?" Abigail demanded, though her voice quaked. "Everything you seek lies just beyond your fear," the figure replied, striding closer. Each footstep reverberated, the tension mounting. "You fear your past because it holds the key to your future. Embrace it, and you'll find freedom." "And if we don't?" she said, heart racing. "Then you shall remain lost, wandering in the shadows forever," it replied matter-of-factly, piercing their hearts as the truth settled. The two girls exchanged looks, their eyes wide. The whisper of fear mingled with the pull of courage. "What if we're wrong?" Abigail asked. Her vulnerability spilled into the silence, raw and exposed. "You won't know unless you step forward. The choice is always yours." The figure extended a hand, beckoning them closer. It felt like a lifesaver thrown into turbulent seas, while the waves of uncertainty battered against them. She felt the pull of what lay behind her, the pain, the regrets, the haunting passed but the figure promised release. Just take that initial step, it urged, and the shadows danced ominously around them. Only then can you find strength in vulnerability. Abigail took a deep breath, her hands trembling. What if we face something we can't handle? Only by confronting the truth will you discover the strength you never knew you had, the figure said, its voice softening, almost a caress against their fears. With that, she felt a spark of determination bloom within her. They had evaded the shadows for too long. The past had shaped them but didn't have to define them. Okay, she breathed, steeling her resolve. We'll go forward together. Together, Abigail echoed, echoing disbelief in her eyes. They stepped closer, hands linked, as the shadows began to blur. Their surroundings shifted, the dark rippling like water disturbed by a plummet. The figure shifted too, a fleeting smile appearing on its face. Just as the clarity of their decision settled in, a new sound emerged, a low grumble, growing louder like an approaching storm. They turned, and their hearts dropped. From the depths of the darkness, shapes began materializing, twisting and writhing, filled with the agony of forgotten secrets. It wasn't just their past that awaited them, more horrors lurked, each more terrifying than the last. Are you prepared to face everything? The figure asked, voice tinged with anticipation. They hesitated. The pounding of their hearts like war drums, as the abyss yawned open before them. What awaited them beyond the veil of shadows? Would it indeed tear them apart or liberate them completely? With a collective breath, they stood firm. This was their moment. The boundary between truth and oblivion was about to shatter. What awaited them in the darkness might change everything they thought they knew, or lead to their ultimate undoing. The darkness twisted around them, thickening in a way that felt almost sentient. Abigail and her friend pressed against one another, their breath quickening as they noticed the shapes materializing in the spectral gloom. Each form seemed to writhe with unspoken anguish, a mass of regrets animated by the flickering glow of faded memories. Keep moving, Abigail urged, her voice barely above a whisper, yet filled with determination. Her pulse raced, a drumbeat of fear and courage intertwined. As they strode forward into the ominous void, whispers snaked around them, threading through the air. The sound was like wind rattling bare branches, familiar and yet foreign. You can't escape. You're not safe, one voice hissed, dripping with malevolence, while another murmured, face the truth, only then can you find peace. Each word dug into Abigail's chest like a splinter. What truth? What peace? She felt like a vessel teetering on the edge of a storm, waves of doubt crashing against her resolve. The figure stared at them, its form blurring for a moment. Remember, it said, its tone serious yet soothing. Only by facing what you fear can you reclaim your power. Can you confront the shadows of your past? Liquid shadows slithered closer, and Abigail's breath caught. She could feel an intensity swelling within the darkness, a chaos yearning for release. What if we can't face it? Abigail blurted out, terror breaking through her façade of bravery. Then you will remain shackled, lost in your own nightmares, the figure replied, unflinching. But remember, the greatest truths often hide behind the fiercest fears. Trust your instincts. With a shared glance, a new resolve sparked between Abigail and her friend. They stepped forward, hearts racing, and the picture around them shifted alarmingly. The figures began to take shape, faces melted from the shadows, fear and despair etched into every feature. It was as if the darkness was revealing not only their past but the raw wounds they had desperately tried to forget. Stay close. Abigail urged as a wave of heat washed over her. The sight of those tortured expressions sent chills down her spine, each face whispering fragments of memories buried deep. She recognized some faces, people they had hurt, those they had failed to understand. The weight of their sins pressed down on her like a boulder. I can't look. Her friend whimpered, squeezing Abigail's hand until it almost hurt. Don't let go, Abigail replied, her throat tight with fear. We have to see this through. We have to. But the verdicts of the figures echoed louder now, each accusation carving deep lines in her soul. "You ran away," one lamented. "You abandoned me," another ghost cried, eyes full of unshed tears. With every step, the shadows became more vivid, consuming the light around them. A particular face moved closer to Abigail, its eyes burning into hers. "You left because you feared the truth," it said, a mix of rage and hurt lacing its tone. "What will you do when that fear becomes your only companion?" Abigail stumbled back, breathless, her mind spiraling. The weight of the past pressed closer, an oppressive fog that twisted her stomach in knots. But something inside her flickered, a determination growing stronger. "I want to be defined by my mistakes. I'm moving forward." Suddenly, the figures erupted in a cacophony of despairing shouts, the darkness swirling as it grabbed onto their limbs. "You'll never escape the consequences!" The voices shrieked, cutting through the chaos. Abigail's heart raced like a wild animal seeking freedom. "We have to fight back," she shouted, clenching her teeth in defiance. "You seek liberation, but the cost will be steep," the figure warned, its voice now barely audible above the tumult of rage and regret roaring around them. And then it hit her: fear was losing its grip. She felt a surge of power, the shadows unable to restrain her will any longer. "We are not alone. We have each other," she cried out, barely recognizing the strength in her voice. Before them, the wall of darkness began to ripple, stirring as if struggling against the rising force of their resolve. The figures faltered, their screams growing weak as the light inside Abigail and her friend pushed back against the darkness, but the shadows weren't done yet. One more shapeless form exploded from the frenzy, rising like a tempest, more powerful and desperate than the rest. "Do you think you can overcome me?" it thundered, cold and relentless, its voice echoing in the very fabric of their minds. With a shared glance of determination, Abigail and her friend held tight to one another, whispers of forgotten courage rippling through the darkness. They prepared for the confrontation ahead, where the true nature of their fears would be revealed. What awaited them in this final battle? Would they find the truth, or would the darkness consume them once and for all? The darkness thickened, its tendrils stretching and reaching as if eager to ensnare their very souls. But Abigail and her friend pressed on, hearts beating in unison, fueled by the fire ignited in the depths of their core. With each step forward, they could feel the weight of their fears and regrets trying to pull them back, but the determination to reclaim their power was rising stronger. Together, Abigail whispered, her grip tightening around her friend's hand, a lifeline tethering them both to courage. As the tempest around them howled in fury, a fractured memory flashed through Abigail's mind, a simple moment in the sun with laughter, a time when joy outweighed shadows. It was fleeting, but it anchored her. "Hold on to that feeling," she shouted, voice slicing through the cacophony, igniting a spark in her friend's eyes. "Remember who you are beneath all the pain. You have faced storms and survived." The ominous figure lunged at them, darkness coiling like a serpent, but they stood firm, aligning their breaths, pooling their strength. Suddenly, bolts of light began to flicker around them like stars breaking through a midnight sky, full of raw energy. The shadows hesitated, recoiling as if burned. "Feel it!" her friend shouted back, carving through the suffocating pressure. "Let it fuel us. You're more than your mistakes." With those words, a wave surged through Abigail, lifting her like a surfboard meeting a wave. The shadows writhed in panic, their dark forms blinking out against the brightness of newfound clarity. A fierce roar erupted as the tempest launched itself at them. "You'll never be free," it bellowed, but their conviction shattered its resolve. "Too late," Abigail shouted defiantly, as the radiant light cracked forward like lightning, tearing through twisted memories. She was confronting the pain head-on, each wound transforming. Regret was morphing into wisdom, and self-doubt igniting into courage. The dark figure solidified in its rage, baring jagged teeth, desperate to cling to its power. "This cannot be. You cannot win." But her friend stepped forward, a beacon shining brighter with each heartbeat. It doesn't matter what you say. We are not afraid of the truth. With those words, they hurled the light forward, a powerful surge of hope flooding the alleyway. It connected with darkness, and a violent storm churned around them, bursting upon impact in a cascade of colors, sorrowful silhouettes unraveling, becoming ethereal whispers scattered in the wind. Each memory confronted now drifted free, a moment transformed from chains into wings. The monstrous figure howled in despair, losing its form under the weight of their collective courage. You cannot escape. It screamed again, but the triumph was palpable, rising like a tide, washing away the vestiges of fear that lingered like dust in the light. Abigail closed her eyes and felt the warmth flow through her, bringing clarity to her shattered heart. But we can embrace it. She yelled, and her friend echoed, we accept our truth, and we rise. In that moment, the darkness shattered, revealing a vast expanse of glowing light, a canvas waiting for their first strokes of freedom. With each step they took, the world breathed anew, vibrant and alive. The streets around them filled with echoes of laughter, hope blooming in the corners where shadows once thrived. Is it over? Abigail asked, breathing heavily, heart pounding as they retreated from the darkness. It's just the beginning, her friend whispered, glancing around at the illuminated world, where truth and reconciliation awaited. With their hands still linked, they faced each other, a smile breaking through the remnants of fear. We've embraced the journey, and together, we can write our own story now. As the first rays of dawn painted the sky above them, colors flooding the horizon, a powerful sense of peace washed over both of them. They no longer felt like prisoners to their past, instead, they experienced it as a guide. The mist of despair dissipated behind them, trailing off into the distance, leaving behind a sense of renewed purpose. This was their truth. This was their victorious moment. The power of their choice transformed suffering into hope, a powerful reminder that even darkness could yield to light when faced with courage, and as they stepped forward into the dawn, they realized they were no longer defined by what they had fearfully left behind but rather by what they would joyfully embrace ahead. Will their story find its way into the hearts of others now freed from their own shadows? Only time will tell, but as long as they stood united, a future of hope awaited. Hey, if you enjoyed this ending and want to join us for more stories that tackle the unexpected and the extraordinary, you need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support. So smash that like button now to feed the algorithm. Don't forget to flood the comments section with your thoughts and theories about this journey. What did you feel through every twist and turn? And for the love of all things storytelling, instantly share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to share. Your support means everything.